Welcome to episode 78.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Who Did That Voice, where we take an in-depth look at voiceovers.
Ready to take a vacay, but you just don't have the time to plan? Let the agents at 3D Travel Company pamper you and take care of all the little details. Find us at www.whodidthatvoice.co and click the Book Now button on the left-hand side. For a limited time, Who Did That Voice listeners can receive a Disney gift card for qualifying Disney and Universal trips, booked and traveled by 2017. Hurry and book today so you can travel away.
Welcome to Who Did That Voice, the show where we take an in-depth look at voiceover. And now, here's your host, Trenton Larkin.
Hey everyone, just wanted to let you know we have launched a Patreon page. You can find us at www.patreon.com/whodidthatvoice. What is Patreon, you say? Well, it's a lot like a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign that allows you to help support us on a monthly basis. For as little as $1 a month, you can help support the show and earn amazing perks. Help us out today and join the Who Did That Voice family in a new way. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today's special guest is best known for voicing Ja-Kal, the leader of the Mummies from Mummies Alive. And 20 years ago today, on September 15th, 1997, just 20 years ago today, Mummies Alive aired for the very first time. Now, here's a clip of Ja-Kal.
Who are you guys?
I am Ja-Kal, this is Armon and Raph, and he is Nefer. They do not see us. You are safe now. We have obeyed the command of Pharaoh.
Wow, how do you do that?
Magic?
So, why don't you guys stay pumped up all the time? It makes you look less dead.
The magic that gives us strength is limited. When it wanes, we must rest in our sarcophagi to renew it.
Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Who Did That Voice. Today on the show, I am super excited to be bringing you an interview with Dale Wilson. Dale, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Most welcome, Trent. My pleasure to be here.
Well, I am so glad I was able to grab you. I've really been looking forward to this for quite some time.
I wish I could share your thing. I'm just always quite nervous in these sort of things, and I just don't want to say anything foolish. So I'm going to stop talking right here for now.
Well, please don't feel nervous at all. Please don't. But this is a pretty laid back and pretty non-formal show. But you know, the very first thing we always like to do, Dale, when we have a guest on the show, especially for the very first time, is to get to know them. So tell me about little Dale, the young boy that grew up into the man he is today, and how did he become an actor, and more specifically, a voice actor?
The year was 1961, the place, Des Moines, Iowa. A young university student named Dale Wilson entered an ad in the paper for announcers to staff the newly formed classical music radio station in Des Moines. Dale Wilson answered the ad, got the job, and the rest is history.
I love it.
How's that?
That's fantastic. I love it.
Well, that pretty well describes it. I just got my first radio job to supplement my income in university, and I kind of enjoyed it, and went home, listened to my voice one night, and was totally appalled, and started practicing imitating people like Gary Owen, you know, and Bruce Ward. No, not Bruce Ward. Who's Batman? Adam
West. Yeah.
Adam West. There we go.
Yeah.
Anyway, here we are. The announcer voice the announcer voice I found to be quite truthful has gotten in my way on a number of occasions, because I always kind of fall back on it. People go, "You sound like a radio announcer." Oh, sorry. Anyway.
Well, it used to be.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you know, back in the day, the radio announcer voice was like what everybody wanted, and then it kind of became the thing that everybody didn't want. So, you know, as times changed,
exactly,
people wanted a more realistic approach to it, and a more, hey, talk to me like we're just having a conversation right now, not like, hey, you're talking to me, talk with me, you know? So, yeah.
Exactly. I always get a kick out of it when people say, well, use your natural voice. I said, this is my natural voice.
What are you talking about? This is my natural voice.
Exactly. exactly.
That's
But like I
great.
say, it's come in handy quite often, and it's been a kind of a thing to get over quite often. So it's all been interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dale, the very first thing we're going to dive into today is Mummies Alive. And I cannot believe today is September 15th, 2017, and today is the 20th anniversary from the original release of Rah, 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 Rah. The first episode came out September 15th, 1997, and today is the 20th anniversary. Can you believe that, Dale?
No, I don't believe it. In fact, one of my favorite sayings these days is, I thought getting old would take longer. But here we are, 20 years. Wow.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable. You played Ja-Kal, the leader of the mummies. You were the blue inspired themed mummy. There was the green one that was played by Scott McNeil. Red
Right,
was...
looks like a horn, looks like a hood ornament, my character sometimes. Anyway.
Yeah, and I believe Raph was Scott McNeil's character, I think. And then Cree Summer... was the red one, and
Nefertiti.
Nefertiti, yes, and Graham Kingston played Armand, the purple-themed mummy. He was the big muscle of the team, and you were the sleek leader.
Him.
Yeah, he was a good one. He didn't have an arm on one side, and when he used his powers to become his armored self, he always got an extra mummified golden arm with his purple theme going on, and it was super, super epic.
Right, I remember.
Just super epic.
I remember.
Well, what was it like getting to work with that cast of amazing mummies that you worked with, Scott McNeil and Cree Summer and Graham Kingston?
Well, they're all they're all great friends, and they're all excellent performers. And you know what? It is the most fun you can have with your clothes on. I tell you, doing animation. Do an animation like this where you're doing what we call the prelay, which is where you do the script and then they ink it, they send it over to the overseas to ink, and then you've done the dialogue before that. They have to work around you. The dubbing is a whole different ball of wax. We won't talk about that right now. But anyway, to get back to it, yeah, people like Scott McNeil just keep us in stitches, and you walk out of the session with your stomach aching and with a few maybe new voices you've sort of tucked away in your hard drive for use later. God, Scott, that was a nice voice. Would you do that again for a second to my microphone? Anyway, Scotty's got a billion voices, and I always never cease to learn stuff when I go into those sessions. We call it learning. Other people would call it plagiarism, but anyway.
That's funny. Well, for those of you who are not familiar with Mummies Alive, please get familiar with it. Today is the 20th anniversary, and Dale, just getting to talk with you today is super epic. We're going to talk about a lot of amazing things, but I really can't thank you enough for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure, Trenton.
Well, Dale, the cool thing about this show was I've always kind of been super fascinated by shows where people transform. Power Rangers, Mummies Alive, and of course, King Arthur and the Knights of Justice, which was also done up in Canada. And, it deals with this mystical, awesome characters that are out of historical time periods, because I love historical pieces. So you're dealing with mummies, whereas King Arthur and the Knights, you're dealing with the magical knights of Camelot, and then they're all able to like transform and get these magical armors and magical weapons and stuff, and it's just super epic. If people haven't seen it, I highly recommend go check out Mummies Alive. Dale played Ja-Kal again, who was the main leader, the blue character. There were 4 mummies that were protecting the reincarnation of Ramses, who had been reborn into this young boy, and they come back to protect him against the forces of evil. And it's just super epic. It's a show that's worth watching, and I really hope that they start bringing this back to the forefront and bringing it back to Cartoon Network or some show format that people can start consuming the show, because it's so good and it's so worth people rewatching, Dale.
I think it was worth more than doing one season, to tell you the truth, and I'm still waiting. I'm still hoping. I'm still holding on to my voice, so we're ready to go for season number 2. You hear that out there, producers?
Well, I know it originally was set for a second season, but apparently due to the low ratings it got, they did not continue it on. But I wish they had.
Yeah.
It was an amazing season, and it was one of those shows that, even though it only lasted one season, it left an imprint on me that was harder than some shows that have 5 and 10 seasons, because it just was done really well and had an amazing theme song.
Well, we did have a lot of fun, and sometimes the quality of the product is reflective of how much fun we've had doing it. And Yeah, it was a great show. It was a great show to do with a lot of variety, which is fun. The beautiful thing about animation acting too is you can actually act. You know, you can go from being this so to being big like this, or little things like that. You know, and it's the sort of thing you don't get to do as a film actor, and a lot of fun.
Well, absolutely. And it's very evident that it was a lot of fun because the way that your portrayal of the characters came across, all of you, Scott McNeil and Cree Summer and Graham, and of course yourself and everyone else that was involved, that was stellar cast. You could tell everyone enjoyed that show because the characters were just so riveting, so alive, so they really impacted me. And I know it touched a lot of people's lives because it's a show that's still talked about. And when they do those like favorite video lineups of the best theme songs from, the 80s or 90s or whatever, and they're doing cartoon theme songs, Mummies Alive is mentioned in so many of those, and so many different people bring it up. And it's just a great show. And Ron Wasserman, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, he actually wrote the theme song for Mummies Alive, was also the writer for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers original theme. And Ron did an amazing job. Yeah. Amazing work. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah, but Ron is an amazing
good
guy.
to know. I can, that's good to know. I can probably win a bar bet with that sometime,
Do you know who? Ron Wasserman. Yeah, no, but no, that's great. But that's just some tidbit, behind the scenes stuff. And I just thought, man, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is a theme song that even if you don't know Power Rangers, people know the theme song. And Mummies Alive is just a very catchy, very well done tune. Very, the lyrics are very good to it. Sometimes you get a theme song that's either very short, very unmemorable, very like, wow, they wasted no money on that project. There's not a lot of oomph to it. And you see Mummies Alive and you see Power Rangers and you go, wow, they invested a lot of time and effort into that because it came out so good, so.
Good what we call production values. A lot of good production values there. Oh, yeah. It looked good. It sounded good. Yeah, it was, Yeah. It should have gone on, darn
it. Well, I think it should be revamped if nothing else, because it's a show that's worth it. And Dale, they can bring you back and we can see you play Ja-Kal again.
There we go. I can do it.
Well,
I can do it. I can still do it. Believe me.
I can do it, Sonny.
Where were we again? Oh gosh.
Where were we at? Well, back in 1997, another production that you got to work on, which is not an animation, but it was something that you did voiceover for, was called Warriors of Virtue. And people may remember this with the 5 kangaroo warriors. And you voiced live.
How could they forget that? 5 kangaroo warriors. I mean, how could you forget that?
I watched it at the YMCA. We were in the YMCA daycare. It was like the mom and dad's night out. So they left us at the YMCA and they put this movie on, and I was like, what is this with karate ninja warriors that are kangaroos? And it was so crazy.
Did it scare you?
It was great.
Did it scare you?
It didn't scare me. It was just very
wow.
Dark.
I thought it kind of dark and scary. I mean, I was an adult.
It was no darker than like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or anything, the actual movie, but
yeah, I would have bad dreams about kangaroos now. That's come on, guys, something's got to be. You got to leave something alone. Anyway, it was an interesting show. That's what I'll say about it.
Yeah. Well, it goes to show people, especially on our show, Dale, that, not everything is animation, and it's really cool that you're able to actually be a part of all kinds of different projects, whether you're doing it for voiceover or whether you're physically on screen, like some of the shows you've been on, like Stargate SG-1, Smallville. I think you were on Psych, the TV show they did with the crazy...
Yep.
Crazy Detectives. I love that show with Gus and I forget the main guys. They were a hoot. They were funny guys. But they were just crazy. But
good tongue-in-cheek playing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that show just cracked me up, and I hated to see it end because it was just so darn funny. But anyway, and then you actually got to be a part of Dragon Ball Z, which is a huge show. My cousin was hardcore into that and got me into it. And, you got to play on 75 different episodes of Dragon Ball Z. You played Perfect Cell, Semi-Perfect Cell, and Imperfect Cell, just to name a few of the many different characters that you actually voiced. What was it like for you to get to be a part of such an iconic franchise?
Well, it was interesting to be a part of an iconic franchise, but only insofar as I was surprised to see it be an iconic franchise. When you do this kind of show, you're just working by yourself. You got a few pages of script from here, a few pages there, all stacked up. So you take episode 1 and you take that off and put that on and you're just watching the television, following the beeps. So you go beep, beep, beep. You start bing, you say your line. Hope it works with the Japanese, what we call mouth flaps. And it's always tricky because the Japanese always throw a little at the end, just a little with the mouth flap, and you go, "Gosh darn it, that's just hard to work into anything that sounds remotely English." So, yeah, in that respect, it was a challenge. And I also don't mind telling you now at this late date that when we first started that, we got paid by the line. Okay, but by the line meant that was a line that was words. But as you know from watching the show, it's so much of that show is vocalizations, not words, just hardcore, beat on the drum vocalizations, which was a lot of work. Strain your vocal cords, you were sweating blood, and we didn't get paid for that. So we did finally manage through the union to get a deal whereby anything that came after your character's name on the script was a line. So that was a great boon for us, and really helped. Really made it made it more worthwhile, obviously, in future episodes.
For sure.
And like I say, mostly though, it's kind of all of us would have wished we could have been in the studio with each other.
Yeah.
But just the nature of that particular show, especially with all the action and stuff, it just wouldn't have worked. Period. So it's better, and plus you have to bang on, you have to fit those mouth flaps. So you got to keep going back over and over it sometimes. And yeah, anyway, that's how it worked. And it was just to tell your listeners that it's not all. It was definitely not glamorous.
Yeah. Well, and in that one is what we actually call dubbing. Well, I'm glad to hear it was fun. I am. And I was just saying, that is actually what is called dubbing. We've talked about it before on the show, but just to kind of reiterate it, it's dubbing whenever they're doing the Japanese shows here in America, because everything's already been created, versus something like Mummies Alive, where it was, recorded and then they animate it according to the pre-recorded dialogue.
Right.
Well, Dale, at the turn of the century, you got to voice a character named Principal Edward Kelly on X-Men Evolution, and yet again voicing another amazing character for a franchise called X-Men. What was it like getting to be on that amazing show?
Again, a lot of the same crowd. I think Scott McNeil and the Dobsons and, Trevor Duvall, I think. Anyway, I don't remember that particular who particularly was on it, but it's the same great crowd we always work with. And again, just a barrel of fun. Yeah, people probably wouldn't pay us as much if they knew how much fun we were having, but we managed to keep it secret.
Well, X-Men Evolution was a really great show. It had a lot of throwback to the 1994 series that had been done on Fox Kids, and some of the characters, their essence and their costumes and stuff were very similar, but they took it from a perspective where they were younger. They were a younger group of X-Men, and so it was really cool to see that perspective of some of the X-Men that we already knew and loved, and we had seen as preteens to young 20s adults, and we got to see them as more, they were more preteen teenagers in this one. So it was really cool to get to see that group of X-Men portrayed in a much younger version. And so, of course, you were the principal for a lot of those characters on the show, which was really cool.
Well, I was happy to get it because we were around the school, and I thought, yep, he's coming back. And he did. We got to play it quite a few times, which is always fun. I'm always glad to get the call saying your character's back this week. Yes. But no, that was a very smart move of them to change to young up the characters for that. I think that was excellent. Whoever whoever did that, I hope they got a little something extra in their pay packet.
Well, I'm sure it was to help kind of gear more towards a younger audience to kind of help grow them into the X-Men. I know they do that a lot with characters from time to time, but then, of course, there are some of us who've grown up with it since we were young, and we kind of want to see it in a different perspective, a different light. But it is good when they do a throwback to a younger era for different characters so that everybody can kind of learn and grow with the characters as their generation comes up.
Exactly, and the way some of these shows run, too, the characters do have an opportunity to grow up throughout the run.
Yeah, they have time to kind of mature and develop and really grow so that you really get to know who the character is instead of just they're already established and they jump right into the show. Sometimes those shows are great, but sometimes it's kind of cool to see it from a perspective that maybe you haven't even thought of it before, but they take it that direction to just give a new concept to that entity or that franchise.
Yep, and we're glad of it.
Absolutely. Well, what kind of advice, Dale, would you give to somebody who's looking at joining this world of acting and maybe trying to specifically get into voiceover?
The first thing I always tell people is, and this is not being facetious, learn a trade. Learn to be a carpenter, learn to be an electrician, learn to be a plumber, learn to have something you can fall back on, because there's going to be a lot of falling back time.
Yeah.
Where you're not, because the competition is pretty stiff. I'm not going to discourage anybody because it's wide open, but you want to make your life comfortable, be able to fall back. All of us have trades we fall back on. It's Scott McNeil's a carpenter, kind of like Harrison Ford, and a lot of the folks they do electrical work. And anyway, like I said, learn a trade.
Okay.
Then practice. Don't be afraid. Just let her, whatever you feel like letting her rip, have a good time and try to carry it through. You come up with little stuff even during the day if you think of something. Don't let it, play with it. Play with it. And you can get a feel for your own range and listen. Listen to what the other, I call it research. A lot of people call it plagiarism. But listen, because there's a lot of good stuff out there that's waiting to be, put into your hard drive.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of business. So, you got to have a good variety. You got to have and you got to be able to, don't be embarrassed. Let it rip. Let it hang out.
I love it.
That's all. Well, a lot of the folks I work with were the kids who got in trouble in school and they got put in the back in the corner, for being silly. I was one of them. I just have fun wherever I could, and sometimes it gets you into trouble, being silly. And but it does. But later on, it could pay off.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else? I think that's about it. And listen to yourself. Get a nice recorder. We got these days with all our beautiful digital MP3 players and MP4 players. You got a device right at your hand. You can practice and practice and practice and refine. It's a wonderful resource having that our little technology thing. So use them.
Well, Dale, before we
and
go,
also watch. Yeah, go ahead.
No. You please.
I was going to say watch the stuff on television, because that's what you're aiming for. So people give you trouble about, oh, you're watching that? Yes, I am, actually.
You tell them you're doing homework.
So there's a lot to do, like I said. Yeah, exactly what it is. So you got to do that. Anyway.
Absolutely. No, I love it, Dale. That's some great advice. And if anyone asks you why you're watching cartoons, no matter how old you are, tell them Dale Wilson told you to.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I love it, Dale.
I'll take the blame for being. Yeah.
Tell them Ja-Kal from Mummies Alive told you to watch cartoons.
Exactly.
Well, Dale, you've done so many wonderful projects. We don't have time to talk about all of them today, but I do want to mention some of the ones that you've done. You've been on Stargate Infinity, which was an animated series for Stargate. You were on Reboot, Spider-Man Unlimited, Mobile Suit Gundam 00, Martin Mystery, RoboCop Alpha Commando with my good buddy David Sobolov and so many other wonderful actors, Reno Romano and everyone. Double Dragon, G.I. Joe from the 80s as Captain Gridiron, Transformers Cybertron as Mudflap, Transformers Armada as Hoist and Smokescreen, Street Fighter, the animated series as Akuma, several other characters. You were on the live-action MacGyver with Richard Dean Anderson back in the day on 5 different episodes.
One of my favorite shows. That was a wonderful show. I did. I think I did 6 or 8 or 9 of those shows, and it was a great group of people to work with. They weren't afraid to spend money. Yeah, it was a pleasure, a real pleasure. I wish they were back.
Oh, MacGyver was the best, and Richard Dean Anderson coming back in Stargate SG-1 made that show. So,
yeah,
in my opinion,
sure. He's Rick's a great guy.
Really great guy. And then, of course, you were on some two more amazing shows we're mentioning today: Extreme Dinosaurs and Zoid's Fusers, which were epic couple of shows there. All of these shows we mentioned were super epic, and I just, I looked at Mummies Alive and knew I wanted to have you on my show, and then looking at your career, I was like, wow, we're gonna have to have you back like 5 more times to talk about everything. So
exactly.
It's crazy.
And it's been a pleasure, Trent.
Absolutely. Well, I've got 2 final questions for you today, Dale, and we will wrap this interview up.
Yeah.
How can people reach out to you, Dale, whether they have questions about voiceover or they just want to say hi, they're a fan of Mummies Alive? How can people reach out to you, Dale?
Well, I do have a web page, a kind of a crummy looking web page, but it's just Dale Wilson Voiceovers. And if anybody wants to, reach out there, my email address is there. So yeah, feel free.
Fantastic.
I'm also on Facebook.
Is it just under Dale Wilson or?
Yep, just under Dale Wilson, no tricks.
Okay. Cool. Well, Dale, the very last question I have for you today, and I really can't thank you enough for being on the show. It's been amazing. What is the legacy that you want to leave behind, Dale?
I looked at a question like that, and I went, I don't know. I don't know. Inspiration. Just, I want to be like him, because that, I heard like Gary Owen and Adam West and people like that, and what was the name of the Lone Ranger? And I got to use those voices, and it was inspiration for me. So if I can be an inspiration to anybody out there, just using my made-up voices that I stole from other people, that's great. And I guess that would call my legacy. Yeah, to encourage and be an inspiration to young folks coming up.
I love it, Dale. I really do.
That's it.
I think you have been an inspiration to people because you're on my show and you've definitely inspired me.
Oh, thanks, Trent. It's been a pleasure.
You're very welcome. Well, Dale, it has been an absolute honor and pleasure having you on the show today. Would you please just give us a special closeout as Ja-Kal from Mummies Alive?
Absolutely, Trent, and the pleasure's been all mine, believe me. This has been Dale Wilson on Who Did That Voice, and I am Ja-Kal, the leader from Mummies Alive, with the strength of Ra!
Well, I sure hope you enjoyed today's episode with Dale Wilson, the voice of Ja-Kal from Mummies Alive. And if you did, please find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram by searching Who Did That Voice. I would love to hear from you. A question you might ask yourself is, where can I listen to Who Did That Voice? That's an excellent question. You can hear us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and our website at www.whodidthatvoice.co. Click the Episodes tab and listen away. Well, everyone, that's all the time we have for this episode. Join us this Friday for our next special guest, Leah McCormick, who does voice matching for Disney and so much more. You won't want to miss this episode. Hey, do you ask yourself who did that voice? Well, if you do, go to our website, www.whodidthatvoice.co, and click on the Episodes tab. Choose an actor, pick their name, and see pictures from the different characters they voiced in their career.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time for more discoveries on Who Did That Voice.